Jodie Chesney was a typical British teenager. A straight-A student who loved going out, loved her family, and had a group of close friends that everyone wanted to be a part of. But one evening in March 2019, as she sat laughing with her friends in the park, a nightmare struck, fast, cold, and without warning. It happened in seconds. A stranger appeared from the darkness. No words. No warning. He walked up from behind and stabbed Jodie in the back, so deep that the blade broke. Then he disappeared. All that was left was panic, the screams of her boyfriend, and a wound that could never be repaired. The story shocked the whole of Britain. A senseless death, in the middle of a park where children play, has sparked outrage and raised the big question: how could a completely innocent girl be the victim of murder? Harold Hill is a working-class neighborhood in East London, not a place known for violence. But that night, everything changed forever. At 9 p.m., Jodie, 17, was sitting with her boyfriend Eddie Coyle and 5 other friends at Amy's Playsite, a small park off St. Neots Road. They were blasting music on mini speakers, laughing and enjoying a peaceful Friday evening. None of the group paid much attention when they saw 2 strangers loitering around the park at 9 p.m. They left a short time later, and no one thought anything more of it. But just 30 minutes later, they returned. This time it was different. They weren't just passing by. They headed straight for Jodie's group, deliberately, quickly, silently, and then, without warning, one of them stabbed Jodie in the back. Eddie, Jodie's boyfriend, held her as she collapsed, blood pouring out uncontrollably. The rest of her friends stood there, stunned. They had no idea what had happened. There had been no fight. No scuffle. Just a cold, unprovoked attack. People nearby heard screaming. A mother watching TV with her son said her son dropped the Xbox controller and ran outside. Another neighbor rushed to the scene, trying to resuscitate Jodie, unaware that the blade was still embedded in her back. An ambulance arrived within minutes. But the wound was too severe. The 18-centimeters blade had torn through Jodie's lung and caused severe internal bleeding. At 10:26 p.m., Jodie was pronounced dead. In the days that followed, people across the UK hung purple ribbons, Jodie's favorite color, on their fences, trees, and even their front doors. The community was in mourning. But no one could stop asking, why? Who was Jodie that moved people so much? She was born and raised in Dagenham, East London. Her parents, Peter and Claire, separated when she was 6. Her father, Peter, raised her and her older sister, Lucy. Tricia was a shy but affectionate girl, always clinging to her father and sister. Peter later remarried Joanne, whom Jodie called Mum even though she wasn't her biological mother. They had a happy, warm, and full family. Jodie was a serious scout, once standing solemnly in front of 10 Downing Street in her scout uniform. She loved dogs, learned piano, did the Duke of Edinburgh program and was close to completing her gold medal. At Havering Sixth Form College, Jodie studied sociology, photography, and psychology. Her teachers described her as intelligent, funny, kind and ambitious. She wanted to work with children or animals. She wanted to help people. That was what Jodie's father, Peter, said in court. A man crushed by a grief that no words could describe. Every morning, he still got up, made coffee, looked at the empty chair where Jodie had eaten breakfast. The house was quieter than ever. Jodie's stepmother, Joanne, shared that they split up shortly after Jodie's death. Not because they no longer loved each other, but because the pain was too much for either of them to bear. Jodie had nothing to do with drugs or gangs. No conflict. No one's target. So why was she killed? The answer is a mistake. A mistaken identity. A revenge attack on the wrong person. The police cordoned off the entire park. CCTV footage was collected, and testimony was sought. A caller reported seeing two young men running from the park, jumping into a black Vauxhall and driving away. The car belonged to Manuel Petrovich, a 20-year-old drug dealer. He initially claimed the car had been hijacked, but later admitted to driving two strangers, Man A and Man B, to the park that night. They said they were going to get money and needed to put pressure on them. But 5 minutes after leaving the car, they returned as if nothing had happened. When Manuel heard that a girl had been stabbed, he was terrified. But instead of telling the truth, he hid the names of his accomplices, for fear of reprisals. Jodie's death was senseless. So senseless that many people wondered, how could a kind, loving, animal-loving girl be murdered like this? And it was that senselessness that caused a stir in Britain. Because if it happened to Jodie, it could happen to anyone. Immediately after Jodie's death, the case quickly became one of the top priorities for the London police. An innocent girl stabbed to death in the middle of a park, for no reason, without conflict, was unacceptable. Investigators from the Homicide and Major Crime Command were sent to the scene. The scene was sealed off for days. Police set up a forensic tent, combing every square inch of Amy's play site. But then they realized, the killer had left no trace. No weapon, no physical evidence. The murder weapon, a 18 cm Rambo knife, was gone. All that remained was blood, blurry cameras, and statements from Jodie's friends, who were too shocked to form complete sentences. The first clue came from a member of the public who called the police. "I saw two people running out of the park," he said. "They got into a black car and drove off." The police asked, "Did you see the number plate?" And luckily, he remembered some of it. The police tracked it down. The car was a black Vauxhall Corsa, seen on a nearby camera, at Retford Road and Street Neots, just a few dozen meters from the park. And the owner was Manuel Petrovich, 20. Petrovich was arrested on March 3, just 2 days after the murder. He was a mid-level drug dealer, well known in the Harold Hill area. Manuel initially said, "My car was stolen. I had nothing to do with it." But when confronted with evidence, he admitted, "Yes, that night, I drove Man A and Man B to the park." According to Petrovich, Man A, the first name, called him that night, asking to be picked up to do a mission. The person with him was Man B, silent, cold. The two got out of the car near the park and disappeared for about 5 minutes. When they returned, there was nothing strange. No panting. No blood. No words. Manuel continued to drive them home. But the next morning, when he heard about the stabbing, he felt uneasy. However, for fear of retaliation, Petrovich did not reveal the identities of the two men. The police began to widen the siege. From descriptions, phone locations, and neighborhood cameras, they identified two suspects, Svensson Ongakwai, 19, and Aaron Isaacs, 17, both young men involved in the marijuana trade and with a history of violence. A team of armed officers were deployed to surround the property. They switched on their body cams and entered with a loud command. When they saw the police, Ongakwai tried to climb onto the roof to escape, but fell through a greenhouse, shattering the entire thing. In the video, he can be heard shouting, "Murder? What murder? I didn't kill anyone." But his denials were quickly quashed when police found Ongakwai's jacket had Jodie's blood on it. and there were messages on his phone about plans to go to the park. As for Isaacs, he tried to escape through a window, but it was too late. When he was arrested in the backyard, police found a backpack which he threw out before being handcuffed. Among them, a Rambo knife, 2 toothbrushes, hair gel and a pair of gloves. The evidence was overwhelming. When questioned, both denied involvement. Onyekwai said, "I just came to get some grass." Isaac said, "I don't know what he was doing. I just ran after him because I was scared." But the evidence was overwhelming. CCTV confirmed the location, Jodie's blood DNA on Onyekwai's sleeve, Isaac's fingerprints on the knife, text messages from Petrovich's group before and after the murder, talking about pressure, intimidation, and getting the wrong person. With no way out, both were charged with murder. Petrovich and another 16-year-old boy, who was involved in the transport, were also arrested for murder and manslaughter, but were later acquitted due to lack of evidence of criminal intent. As the truth slowly emerged, the public understood Jodie was killed by mistake. Police said Onyekwai's group intended to find a rival gang in Harold Hill to put pressure on over a dispute over marijuana territory, but in the dark of night, they chose the wrong group. The wrong person. And the victim was Jodie, a girl who had nothing to do with drugs, nothing to do with violence, simply sitting listening to music with friends in the park, Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wells told the press. This was not a stabbing due to a personal dispute. This was a senseless murder. A wrongful death, cruel, unforgivable. So, after a series of interviews, CCTV analysis, and hundreds of hours of investigation, the police identified exactly who killed Jodie. But the price was too high. An innocent girl lost her life. A family was broken. And an entire community was hurt. On September 17, 2019, the Old Bailey, one of the oldest and most famous courts in the UK, officially opened the trial of the murder case that shocked the whole country, the murder of Jodie Chesney. The defense included Svensson Onyekwai, 19, Aaron Isaacs, 17, Manuel Petrovich, 20, and a 16-year-old boy, who cannot be named for legal reasons. Jodie's family, Father Peter, stepmother Joanne, and sister Lucy, attended court every day, wearing purple ribbons in her memory. Each time Jodie's image was shown on the screen, the room fell silent, and tears were shed. Prosecuting barrister Crispin Aylett QC began, Jodie Chesney was a completely innocent girl. She was killed by mistake, by the stupidity and cruelty of a group of people who wanted to dissuade the drug war, but chose the wrong target. The evidence was presented in turn. CCTV footage showed Petrovich driving a Vauxhall Corsa near Amy's Park at the time of the murder. Onyekwai's jacket, found at the house, had Jodie's blood on it. Text messages on the group's phones show they had planned it. Discussed pressure, and even later Onyekwai said he had stabbed the wrong person. A recorded conversation from Petrovich in prison revealed he knew about the plan and realized Onyekwai picked the wrong person. The lawyer also dismissed any defense, saying, "I didn't know what was going to happen." Under British law, if you participate in a plan that you know will result in serious violence, you are still criminally responsible as the person who carried it out. In court, Onyekwai denied stabbing Jodie, saying he had only gone to get cannabis. His lawyer argued, there were no witnesses who saw the face of the person who stabbed him. The jacket could have been borrowed. Isaacs testified, "I just followed. I didn't have a knife. I didn't know what was going to happen." Petrovich insisted, "I was just the driver. If I had known, I wouldn't have come." The 16-year-old remained silent throughout most of the trial. His lawyer asked the court to consider his age, family circumstances, and lack of previous convictions. After a 45-hour trial and more than 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned their verdicts on November 7, 2019. Svensson Omekwai, guilty of murder. Aaron Isaacs, guilty of murder. Manuel Petrovich and 16-year-old, not guilty. Jodie's family was stunned. For them, Petrovich and the other teenager were still responsible. But the law requires that criminal intent be proven, and that was not clear to the jury. On November 18, Judge Wendy Joseph QC handed down the sentences: Omekwai, life imprisonment, with a minimum of 26 years, Aaron Isaacs, life imprisonment, with a minimum of 18 years. She told the court, "I have no doubt that whoever stabbed Jodie intended to kill her. It was not a warning stab. It was a fatal stab into someone who was sitting there, defenseless." Jodie's father, Peter, said through tears, "I have lost the most precious person in my life. Every day is a nightmare. Jodie is gone. And I can't stop missing her." Joanne, stepmother, said, "I am glad that justice has been done. But I don't think I will ever feel satisfied. Nothing can bring Jodie back." After the trial, Jodie's family was torn apart by grief. Joanne and Peter split up in early 2020. Not because they didn't love each other, but because they couldn't get through the pain together. Jodie's sister Lucy wrote in a statement to the court, "She was my other half. Now I have only half my life." Jodie's room remains the same. Her pictures are still hung around the house. The piano she used to play is still dusted every week, even though no one touches the keys anymore. The Jodie Chesney Foundation was founded out of this loss. It works to combat knife crime, educating young people about the consequences of violence and the path to crime. Her father, Peter, runs the foundation. He regularly holds workshops and events at schools, and leads the No Knives, Better Lives campaign. In 2024, the foundation held a major fundraiser, raising more than £10,000. The money was used to fund anti-violence education programs across East London. Jodie Chesney's story has sparked calls for the government to take more drastic action against knife crime in the UK. A debate has broken out in the British Parliament. Politicians are arguing about knife laws, the handling of juvenile crime, and the failure of the youth support system. The Guardian commented, "A fatal mistake took the life of an innocent girl, and opened the door to the heartbreaking truth about violence against young people in the UK." Jodie's birthday, March 1st, is now a day of remembrance. Peter wrote on X, Twitter, in 2025, "Another year without you. But your light still shines everywhere. You taught me to love, to fight for what is right." Jodie's story is a tragedy, but also a wake-up call. A girl who loved life, lived a kind life, was killed because of a mistake in a world of underground violence. Jodie's death was a mistake. But her life was a gift. The question remains, how many more people will die from cosmetic surgery? How many more families must fall before society changes? Because justice does not begin with laws, it begins with awareness.